I smoothed the lapel of my tailor navy suit, carefully chosen to look like an off-the-rack bargain, as I walked toward the towering glass doors of Harrington Dynamics in downtown Seattle. 10 years of patience and planning had brought me to this moment, and I wasn't about to let my family derail it. "I'm here for the board meeting," I told the security officer, who scanned his list and frowned. Before he could speak, my older brother Ethan strode out, his silk tie gleaming under the recessed lights. "What are you doing here, Elena?" he sneered. "I'm here for the meeting," I repeated, meeting his gaze without flinching. "This is family only," he said, smirking as he moved to shut the door. "You gave that up when you sold your shares, remember?" I hadn't sold my shares. I'd let them believe I had, while quietly consolidating control through shell corporations and proxy investors. Today, they'd finally learn the truth. "Mr. Reynolds is expecting me," I said calmly, naming the CEO who'd been secretly working with me for months. Ethan chuckled. "Please, Jonathan doesn't waste time on minor shareholders." As if on cue, Jonathan Reynolds appeared in the doorway. "Elena, we've been waiting for you." The look on Ethan's face was worth every sleepless night I'd spent planning. Inside, my stepmother Margot and my sister Clara sat at the sleek walnut table, their polished nails tapping in irritation. "What is she doing here?" Margot snapped. "This is a private board meeting." "About that," Jonathan said, stepping to the head of the table. "We have updates regarding company ownership." Clara rolled her eyes. "We know the ownership structure. Elena sold her shares years ago after that ridiculous push for renewable energy." I remembered that day, the laughter, the dismissive smirks when I warned them the future was digital and sustainable. They called me naive. Now Harrington Dynamics was bleeding market share to forward-thinking rivals, exactly as I predicted. "Actually," Jonathan continued, clicking the remote, a slide appeared on the massive screen. "A complex network of entities, all leading to Ravenwood Capital. Ms. Drake," he said, turning to me with a nod, "owns 62% of this company." Silence. My family's empire, the one they cast me out of, was now mine. "What is this?" Ethan demanded. Jonathan gestured to the massive screen. "This is the current ownership structure of Harrington Dynamics, and Ravenwood Capital, which now controls 62% of outstanding shares, belongs to Elena." The silence was deafening. "That's impossible," Margot whispered. "She couldn't afford." "She doesn't have the resources," Clara added, her voice sharp. "Remember that renewable energy fund you all mocked?" I said, my tone calm, almost conversational. "The one you claimed would never succeed." I let the weight of the moment settle before continuing. "It's now worth $8,200,000,000, 0 cents. And I used every cent of profit to buy back my father's company." Clara's manicured hands shook as she snatched her tablet, fingers flying over the screen, no doubt verifying the numbers. "But you live in that tiny loft. You drive a 10-year-old Subaru." "Because success," I replied, meeting her gaze, "isn't about flaunting wealth. It's about building something meaningful, something Dad would have been proud of." Ethan surged to his feet, his face a dangerous shade of red. "This is outrageous. The board won't allow it." "The board," Jonathan interrupted smoothly, "has already been briefed. Elena's acquisition is fully legal, and her voting rights take effect immediately." I opened a leather folder and slid my proposals across the table, the same ones they'd mocked a decade ago. "Now, shall we discuss the future of Harrington Dynamics? I have plans for digital transformation." Margot's face drained of color. "You can't do this. We're family." "Family," I repeated, my voice edged with steel. "Like when you changed the locks on our home the day after Dad's funeral? Or when you told the press I had a breakdown because I challenged your management? That kind of family?" The boardroom erupted. Ethan barked orders to his lawyer over the phone. Clara's composure cracked, tears brimming. Margot sat frozen, the mask of control slipping. Jonathan advanced the slide deck. "For the record, Ravenwood Capital began acquiring shares over the past 10 years, all legally filed, all above board." I clicked to the next slide, A photo of my father in the early days, standing beside the company's first solar prototype. While you obsessed over country clubs and private jets, I said evenly, this company lost 40% of its market share. That ends today. You mean this legacy? I said, my tone like ice. The one where Dad championed renewable energy long before it was profitable? The legacy you dismantled because oil and gas gave you bigger bonuses? Ethan's phone buzzed. His lawyer was finally on the line. He listened for a moment, and his face drained of color. There has to be something we can do, he barked into the phone. There isn't, I replied evenly. Every acquisition was legal, every share purchase documented. While you mocked my tiny loft and 10-year-old Subaru, you missed the billions I funneled back into this company. Margot finally spoke, her voice trembling. The board will never accept this. We have relationships, connections. You mean the same board members watching their stock options bleed 60% under your leadership? I gestured toward the executives seated around the table, their discomfort palpable. The same people who've watched competitors embrace clean energy while we clung to dying technologies? Jonathan cleared his throat. The board has already voted to support Miss Drake's leadership transition plan. Clara's mascara streaked down her cheeks. Leadership transition? Effective immediately, I continued. I'm assuming the role of executive chair. Jonathan remains CEO to implement our new strategy. But my position, Ethan sputtered. Your role as chief strategy officer? I tilted my head. The one where you blocked every innovation initiative? Eliminated. Effective today. You can't fire me, he hissed. I'm a Harrington. So am I reminded him. The daughter you dismissed as naive, the sister you shut out of meetings, the family member you tried to erase. I clicked to the next slide, 2 graphs side by side. One showed my green energy funds skyrocketing, the other displayed Harrington Dynamics' slow decline. 10 years ago, you laughed when I pitched renewable investments, called it a tree hugger's fantasy. That fantasy built an $8 billion, $200 million 0-cents fund that just bought your controlling interest. Margot tried a different tone. Darling, surely we can talk as a family. Your father would have wanted. Dad would have wanted progress, I cut in. From my folder, I pulled a worn envelope. His last letter, the one you hid from me, hoped I'd lead this company toward a sustainable future. I placed it on the table. My voice softened. He knew. If you loved watching Elena take back everything they stole, hit that subscribe button, because the next chapter will reveal what happens when the family fights back. He knew you'd resist change, I said quietly. Cling to the past. Choose profit over progress. That's why he left me an equal share of this company. He wanted balance between tradition and innovation. But you sold those shares, Clara snapped, her voice rising. No, I replied, my tone sharp. I let you think I sold them. Then I watched as you drove this company's value into the ground, making every additional purchase easier for me. I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. Basic business strategy. Something you might have learned if you'd spent more time in board meetings and less time hosting charity galas. Opening my laptop, I projected a new organizational chart onto the massive screen. Effective immediately, Harrington Dynamics is being restructured. Our focus? Renewable energy, clean tech, and digital transformation. You'll destroy everything we've built, Ethan shouted. You mean everything you dismantled? I countered. Our stock price is down 60% since Dad died. Market share is evaporating. Top engineers are fleeing to competitors who embraced innovation years ago. Jonathan distributed sleek folders to the stunned board members. Inside, you'll find our 5-year transformation plan. Ms. Drake has already secured $4 billion 0 cents in green energy contracts. Clara flipped through the pages, her hands trembling. The Saudi Sol Initiative, European wind projects, these are enormous. All secured through my network, I said calmly. While you were laughing at my Subaru, I was building partnerships with the biggest renewable investors on the planet. Margot's face went ashen as she scanned the projections. These are conservative estimates, Jonathan added smoothly. Given market trends, actual returns should exceed these figures significantly. I advanced the slide, An old photo of my father beside the company's first solar prototype. Dad built this company to transform the energy sector. He believed in progress when others mocked him. He bet on solar before it was profitable. He fought for wind energy when rivals called it foolish. But we were protecting the company, Ethan muttered. Oil and gas were profitable. We're profitable, I emphasized. But the world changed, and thanks to your short-sightedness, we're scrambling to catch up. The final slide filled the screen. Massive solar installations, advanced battery tech, revolutionary wind turbines. Everything you mocked me for, I said softly, is now worth billions. Every so-called tree-hugger fantasy you mocked, I said, my voice calm but cutting, is the future of energy, and now it's the future of Harrington Dynamics. Clara dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, her composure unraveling. What happens to us? She whispered. That depends, I replied coolly. Those willing to embrace our new vision can remain in redefined roles. Those who can't, your severance packages are outlined on page 12. Ethan gave a bitter laugh. You really think you can run this company? You and your sustainability crusades, your idealistic dreams? I pressed a button. The wall screens lit up with live feeds from my fund's projects worldwide. Solar fields stretching toward endless horizons, wind farms powering entire regions, advanced battery systems stabilizing national grids. I already run something bigger, I said softly. My so-called crusades built a fund worth 3 times what Harrington is worth today. The only difference is, I'm bringing that success home. Margot tried again, her voice brittle. The shareholders won't stand for this. The old families and institutional investors have already pledged their support, Jonathan interjected smoothly. They've seen the projections, they know where the future lies, and they're done watching losses mount while competitors embrace clean energy. I stood, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Seattle skyline. Dad used to stand here, pointing out rooftops where he imagined solar panels. You called him a dreamer then, too. I turned, meeting their eyes. But he built this company on those dreams. 5 years ago, they locked me out of this boardroom because I shared his vision. They called me naive for betting on renewables, mocked me for living modestly while building something meaningful. My phone buzzed, a news alert. The story had leaked. Harrington Dynamics stock was already up 12% in pre-market trading. Your choice is simple, I said, facing them. Adapt. Or take your severance. Either way, Harrington Dynamics returns to its original mission today. Ethan rose slowly, jaw tight. You'll regret this. You have no idea how to manage relationships with our traditional partners. You mean oil companies now investing billions in renewables or industrial giants demanding clean energy solutions? I clicked to the next slide. Sign contracts with Fortune 500 corporations? While you guarded the past, I finished, I was building the future. While you mocked my dreams, I said evenly, I was turning them into reality. Clara gathered her things, her perfectly manicured hands trembling. What will people say? She whispered. At the club. In our circles? They'll say what they always say, I replied calmly, that success proves itself, that vision matters more than tradition, that sometimes the person you locked out of the boardroom ends up owning it. By the end of the day, the reality of my takeover set in. Ethan and Clara cleared out their corner offices, their severance checks a fraction of their usual bonuses. Margot vanished to her country estate, where she'd have to explain to her friends how the stepdaughter she'd dismissed now controlled the Harrington empire. Jonathan and I worked late, finalizing the transition plans. Harrington Dynamics stock surged 23% by market close on news of our renewable energy initiatives. Analysts were already calling it the Green Revolution. 1 year later, I stood in that same boardroom, overlooking Seattle's skyline as we announced yet another record-breaking quarter. Our solar projects were generating double the projected revenue. Our wind farms powered entire cities. Our battery technology was rewriting the future of energy storage. The wall screens displayed our global operations, everything I dreamed of a decade ago when they mocked my ideas. And yes, My 10-year-old Subaru was still parked in my space, a quiet reminder that real success isn't about flashy wealth. It's about building something meaningful. Ethan now appeared on business talk shows, criticizing our strategy, but the numbers silenced him. Harrington Dynamics stock had tripled. Our market share in renewables was growing exponentially. We were becoming exactly what Dad always envisioned. I keep the old boardroom key on my desk now, a reminder of the day they locked me out, because sometimes the best revenge isn't proving them wrong, it's proving your father right. As another meeting ended, my assistant entered with a smile. "Ms. Drake, Forbes wants a cover story on our Saudi solar project, and your brother is on CNBC again, saying we've lost our way." I smiled, pulling up the live feed. Ethan was in his designer suit, ranting. "And our stock price?" I asked. "Up another 4% after the Clean Energy Act passed. We're now the largest renewable energy provider on 3 continents." What began as a family feud had become a business school legend. How a so-called naive environmentalist had turned a declining energy corporation into a global clean power leader. How the daughter they locked out had rewritten an entire industry. My phone buzzed, a message from Clara. "The country club is hosting an energy innovation panel. Would you consider speaking? For the family's sake." Family. The same word they used when they pushed me out, when they mocked my proposals, when they chose short-term profit over long-term sustainability. I typed back, "Sorry, busy installing solar panels that day." The irony tasted sweet. They once claimed I was destroying Dad's legacy. But our latest projects were everything he dreamed of. Sprawling solar fields in Saudi Arabia, floating wind farms off the European coast, revolutionary energy storage systems, all ideas sketched in his worn notebooks. Margot had tried to burn those notebooks after his death, calling them embarrassing fantasies. Now they hung in our company's innovation gallery, framed beside photos of fully operational projects that power millions of homes. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Jonathan stepped in. "Ms. Drake, the Middle Eastern Sovereign Wealth Delegation has arrived. They're ready to double their investment in our renewable portfolio." I nodded, closing my laptop. "Show them Dad's original solar designs," I said, gathering my papers, "and then show them what we've built, bigger than even he imagined." Despite the billions flowing through our projects, my outfit remained simple. A tailored blazer from an ordinary store, black pumps, no designer logos. Success was never about flaunting wealth. It was about proving a vision. 10 years ago, I stood outside this boardroom, locked out by the very people who claimed to protect the company. They said I was reckless, idealistic, the green sheep of the family. Today, those same voices begged for my presence on panels and cover stories. But the truth was simple. The future belongs to those who embrace change. And while they were busy clinging to a past built on oil, I was quietly building tomorrow. As I walked toward the conference room, the city skyline gleamed under the late afternoon sun, a reflection of what we'd created. Not just a business empire, but a legacy. Dad's dream had become reality, and so had mine. What would you have done in my place? Locked out, underestimated, and told your dreams were foolish? Would you have walked away or fought harder? Tell me in the comments if you would have taken the same risk I did. If this story resonates with you, subscribe and join me for the next chapter of this journey. And remember this: success isn't about proving others wrong, it's about proving your vision right. Stay focused, stay patient, and never let someone else define your limits. Your future is built on the dreams they laugh at today.